My name is Jacob Martin. I'm 43, and I'm about to tell you how I became the man who married my dead brother's wife, only to discover she was the one who killed him. Not exactly your typical dinner party conversation starter, is it? Let me be clear. I'm not special. I analyze spreadsheets for environmental startups in Spokane, Washington. I drive a Toyota that's 2 years out of warranty. Until 6 months ago, the most exciting thing in my life was a 7% return on my retirement portfolio. I was completely unremarkable. My brother Andrew, though, pure charisma in human form. 6'2", shoulders like a linebacker, and a smile that made everyone feel like they'd won the lottery just by being in his presence. Star quarterback in high school who became Seattle's favorite firefighter. The kind of guy who rescues kittens from trees and then gets featured in the local news looking all humble about it. We weren't close. Different planets orbiting the same sun. We'd exchange perfunctory texts on birthdays, see each other at Christmas. He'd send me photos of dramatic rescues. I'd send him articles about sustainable investment. Riveting stuff. Then came that call. Tuesday afternoon, October 12th. I was in a meeting about carbon credits when my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. 3 missed calls from my mother. Andrew's gone, Jacob. Her voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. A building collapse. They couldn't get him out. The funeral was what you'd expect for a hometown hero. Fire trucks, the mayor, half of Seattle turning out. And there, standing beside the flag-draped coffin, was Hayley, my brother's wife of 3 years. I'd only met her twice before. Christmas dinner and a summer barbecue. Auburn hair that caught the light, green eyes that seemed to laugh at a private joke. At those family gatherings, she'd been vibrant, a perfect match for Andrew's larger-than-life presence. But at the funeral, something was off. Her face was composed, her eyes dry. She accepted condolences with quiet dignity, but there was something missing, that raw devastation you'd expect from a woman who just lost her husband. I know grief. I was drowning in it myself when I approached her, surprising us both with hot tears that spilled out when I tried to speak. "Jacob," she said, taking my hands. Her skin was warm, her grip surprisingly firm. "Andrew always said you were the sensitive one." Something passed between us, a current, a recognition, something that had no business existing over my brother's body. "Would you come by the house sometime?" she asked. "There's paperwork, Andrew's things. I could use the help." I nodded, unable to form words. As I turned to leave, she caught my sleeve. "He wasn't as happy as everyone thought, you know," she whispered. "No one really knew him. Not even you." That night, lying awake in my hotel room, I realized she'd been wearing perfume at her husband's funeral. Something expensive and subtle. Not the scent of a woman destroyed by loss. I should have seen the red flag waving frantically in front of my face. But grief makes fools of us all. I meant to go back to Spokane after the funeral. Really, I did. But Hayley called the next day, asking if I could help with Andrew's pension paperwork. It seemed heartless to refuse. Her house, their house, was a modern craftsman in one of Seattle's best neighborhoods, with views that justified the mortgage I knew my brother carried. Andrew had done well for himself. Very well. Hayley opened the door in yoga pants and one of Andrew's old sweatshirts, hair piled messily on top of her head. No makeup. She looked younger, vulnerable. "Coffee," she offered, leading me into a kitchen, straight from Architectural Digest. "Or something stronger?" I've been switching between the two since sunrise. We spent the afternoon sorting through my brother's financial life. Insurance policies, investment accounts, property deeds. The scope was staggering. Andrew, who once set fire to our garage trying to make homemade fireworks, had built an empire. "Did you know about all this?" I asked, gesturing to the papers, spread between us. Hayley shrugged one delicate shoulder. "Some, not all. Andrew liked to handle the money himself." She twisted her wedding ring, a diamond that could choke a horse. He could be controlling that way. By evening, we'd barely scratched the surface. Hayley ordered Thai food and opened a bottle of wine. Between the pad Thai and the second glass of Pinot Noir, we moved to the couch. She tucked her bare feet under, her suddenly smaller. "Tell me something about him I don't know," she said. "From before." So I did. I told her about teenage Andrew stealing our dad's car to impress a girl, about how he'd cover for me when I wanted to read instead of doing chores, about the time he punched a kid who called me a nerd in 7th grade. He was my protector, I admitted, surprised by the thickness in my voice, even when we grew apart. Hayley's face softened. For the first time, I saw genuine emotion there. Not grief exactly, but something more complex. "He talked about you," she said quietly. "Said you were the smart one, that he wished he'd gone to college like you did." I laughed. "Andrew? He had everything. The looks, the charm, the hero job, the beautiful wife." Her eyes found mine over the rim of her wineglass. "And yet he envied you." It was nearly midnight when I stood to leave. The thought of driving back to my hotel suddenly seemed exhausting. "Stay," she said, reading my hesitation. "The guest room is made up." I should have said no, should have made my excuses, called an Uber, gone back to sterile sheets and minibar whiskey. Instead, I nodded. I must have fallen asleep eventually, because I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of quiet sobbing. I found Hayley at the kitchen island, shoulders shaking, a photo of Andrew clutched in her hand. When she heard me, she quickly wiped her eyes, tried to smile. "Sorry," she whispered. "It hits in waves." Without thinking, I put my arms around her. She stiffened, then melted against me, her face pressed to my chest. I felt her tears soaking through my t-shirt, felt the warmth of her body through the thin material of her nightgown. "I'm so alone," she murmured against my skin. It was the first time I held her. It wouldn't be the last. I extended my stay in Seattle. One night became 2, became a week. I called my office, arranged to work remotely, told myself I was just helping. Hayley navigate the bureaucracy of death. That's what Andrew would have wanted, but Andrew wasn't there in the evenings when Hayley and I shared bottles of wine by the fireplace. Andrew wasn't there when she started telling me things about their marriage, about the cracks that had begun to show, how he'd grown distant in the last year, how she suspected an affair. "He changed," she said one night, 3 weeks after I should have gone home. "Became secretive, started taking calls in another room, coming home at odd hours." "That doesn't sound like Andrew." She gave a bitter laugh. "You didn't know him anymore, Jacob. None of us did. By the time the first snow fell in late November, I had moved into the guest room semi-permanently. My apartment in Spokane sat empty. Hayley and I had developed a routine: morning coffee, work in separate rooms, dinner together, then nightcaps, by the fire. And yes, I was falling for her. Of course I was. She was beautiful, vulnerable, and increasingly, she looked at me like I was the answer to a question she'd been asking all her life. The first time she kissed me was December 14th, 67 days after Andrew died. We'd been decorating the Christmas tree, my suggestion, thinking it might lift her spirits. Instead, hanging Andrew's childhood ornaments had triggered fresh tears. I held her while she cried. When she lifted her face to mine, her cheeks were wet, her eyes luminous with something more complex than grief. Her kiss tasted of salt and desperation. I pulled away. "We can't." "Why not?" she whispered, her fingers curling into my sweater. "Andrew's gone. We're both here, both hurting." "It's too soon." She stepped back as if I'd slapped her. "For you or for me? For both of us. For propriety's sake." Her laugh was harsh. "Propriety? My husband is dead, Jacob. Dead. And before he died, he was planning to leave me. Did you know that? He was meeting with a divorce attorney. I found the paperwork. This stunned me. Why would he? Because he was fucking a paramedic from station. 12, she spat. 25 years old, blonde, built like a fitness model. I stood there, Christmas lights blinking cheerfully beside us, trying to reconcile this information with the brother I thought I knew. "I'm sorry," I finally said. "I had no idea." Her face crumpled. "No one did. That was Andrew. Everyone's hero. Everyone's golden boy." She sank onto the couch. "I wasn't even surprised when I found out. That's the worst part. Our marriage had been over for months. I couldn't tell you who moved first the second time, only that her lips found mine with more purpose, more heat. Only that somehow we ended up in the master bedroom, Andrew's bedroom, her nightgown sliding over her head, my hands trembling as they traced the curves of her body. "Are you sure?" I gasped as she pulled me down onto cool sheets. Her eyes, when they met mine, were clear, certain. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. We made love with a desperate intensity that frightened me. There was grief. In it, yes. Guilt, too. But mostly a hunger that had nothing to do with Andrew and everything to do with the electricity that had been building between us for weeks. Afterward, as she slept curled against me, I stared at the ceiling and tried to silence the voice in my head, the one telling me that brothers don't do this. Don't covet their dead brother's wife. Don't take her to bed less than 3 months after the funeral. But another voice, louder and more insistent, whispered that Andrew was gone, that he'd betrayed Hayley first, that two broken people had found comfort in each other, and wasn't that the most human thing in the world? By Christmas, we were living as a couple. By Valentine's Day, I had proposed. She said yes immediately, tears streaming down her face. "I never thought I'd feel happiness again," she whispered as I slid the ring onto her finger, a simple emerald, nothing like the diamond Andrew had given her. My mother, when I finally told her, was silent for so long I thought we'd been disconnected. She was his wife, Jacob. Her voice was like ice. "Do you think 6 months is enough time to mourn a husband? To mourn your brother?" We didn't speak again before the wedding. I told myself it didn't matter. That, in time, she'd see how happy Hayley and I were together. The wedding was on a Tuesday afternoon. Hayley wore a cream-colored suit, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked radiant. I couldn't believe my luck. That night, in our hotel room overlooking Seattle's waterfront, she curled against me, her new ring catching the moonlight. "Tell me something, Jake," she murmured, using the nickname only Andrew had ever used before. "Do you think people can be fated to be together, even if the timing is complicated?" I pressed my lips to her forehead. "I think we make our own fate." She was quiet for a moment. "Andrew used to say, everything happens for a reason." Her voice was thoughtful. I never believed him until now. The next day we flew to Colorado, to our alpine honeymoon, to what would become my own personal hell. Aspen in March is a paradise. Our rental was a glass and timber marvel perched on the edge of a slope, with a hot tub on the deck and a stone fireplace big enough to stand in. The first days were intoxicating. We skied until our legs burned, soaked in the hot tub, made love, in every room of the house. Hayley was insatiable, adventurous in ways that both thrilled and slightly unsettled me. "You've awakened something in me," she said on our third night, as we lay tangled in sheets damp with sweat. "I feel like I'm finally myself again." The first real discord came on day 4. We were having breakfast on the deck when Hayley's phone chimed. She glanced at it, then quickly flipped it face down. "Work?" I asked, buttering my toast. "Just spam," she said, but a slight flush had risen on her cheeks. I didn't think much of it until it happened again that afternoon. And again, over dinner. Each time she'd check the message, type a quick reply, then set the phone aside with studied casualness. "Popular today," I commented as we shared a bottle of wine by the fire. Hayley stretched like a cat. Just Lisa, checking in." Lisa, her maid of honor, a college friend I'd met only at the wedding. "She's having boy troubles again." I nodded, but something cold had settled in my stomach, a prickle of unease. That night, as Hayley showered, her phone chimed. Again. It lay on the coffee table between us, screen illuminating with a notification. From G. Almost finalized. He suspects nothing. The message vanished after a few seconds. I sat perfectly still, blood rushing in my ears. Who the hell was G? What was being finalized? And who was the he that suspected nothing? When Hayley emerged from the bathroom, wrapped, in a plush robe, hair dripping, I had composed my face into neutral lines. "Water pressure here is amazing," she said, toweling her hair. "We should renovate our bathroom when we get home." I smiled, nodded, played along. But that night, as she slept beside me, I lay awake, that message cycling through my mind. The next morning, I suggested we try a different ski run. More challenging, better views. "You go ahead," Hayley said, not meeting my eyes. I thought I'd take it easy today. Maybe hit the spa. "I'll join you," I offered. "My quads could use a massage after yesterday." "No." The vehemence in her voice surprised us both. She recovered quickly. "I mean, you should enjoy the slopes, and I kind of want some me time to process everything that's happened. Is that okay?" What could I say? That I didn't trust her? I kissed her goodbye and spent the day carving through powder, my mind racing faster than my skis. When I returned to the cabin that afternoon, Hayley was on the deck, wrapped in a blanket, typing furiously on her laptop. She closed it the moment she saw me. "Productive day?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Just catching up on emails." She stood, stretching. "How was the mountain?" Exhilarating. I moved to embrace her, inhaling as I pulled her close. Her hair smelled different, like men's cologne. "Did you go somewhere today?" She stiffened almost imperceptibly. "Just the spa. Why?" That night I woke at 3 a.m. to find her side of the bed empty. I found her in the living room, silhouetted against the window, phone pressed to her ear. "It's all set," she was saying, voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, next week. No, I told you, he doesn't suspect anything." "Yes, I'm being careful." I retreated silently to the bedroom, heart hammering. When she returned 10 minutes later, I feigned sleep, feeling her slide between the sheets, keeping careful inches between our bodies. The next day, I made my move. While Hayley was in the shower, I tried her laptop. Password protected. Her phone was the same, but the password hint on the laptop gave me pause. First, Love's surname. It took 3 tries before I hit on it. Garrett. The laptop sprang to life, revealing her email. And there it was, in black and white. Dozens of exchanges with someone named Garrett Lawson. I opened the most recent "Everything's on track, baby. Insurance company says they'll release the funds by end of month. One final review of the policy. Then we're home free. Your husband still clueless?" Her reply made my blood freeze. Completely. Jacob trusts me implicitly. It's almost too easy. The perfect patsy. I clicked through older messages, hands shaking. The correspondence went back over a year, well into her marriage with Andrew. The early exchanges were flirtatious, nostalgic. Old lovers reconnecting. Then they turned passionate. Explicit. Plans were made, and then, 3 months before Andrew's death, the tone shifted again. "Garrett, I can't do this anymore. The lying, the sneaking around, and A is getting suspicious." He checked my phone last. Night. Garrett's response. "We've talked about this, H. You know there's a cleaner solution." Hayley. "You can't possibly mean—" Garrett. "One-time solution. Clean break, and that insurance policy pays out double for line-of-duty death." I felt physically ill. Closed the laptop, barely making it to the toilet before vomiting. When I could breathe again, I splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection. The man looking back at me was a stranger, hollow-eyed, haunted. My brother had been murdered, and I had married his killer. I'm not a brave man, not impulsive. I analyze risks for a living, calculate odds, make measured decisions. But in that moment, standing in a luxury bathroom in Aspen, I became someone else. Someone cold, calculating. Someone who could look his wife, his brother's murderer, in the eye and pretend everything was normal, because I needed proof. Hard evidence. Not just suspicious emails that could be explained away. I needed Hayley to pay for what she'd done. So I flushed the toilet, brushed my teeth, and walked back into our bedroom with a smile. "Thought we might try that new French place tonight," I said as Hayley applied lotion to her legs. "The concierge said they have an amazing wine list." She looked up, searching my face. Finding nothing amiss, she smiled. "Perfect. Over the next 3 days, I became the world's greatest actor. I laughed at her jokes, made love to her with convincing enthusiasm, planned our future together, all while meticulously gathering evidence. I installed a keylogger on her laptop while she was in the bath. Bought a second phone and hid it in her purse, activated to record conversations. Each night after she fell asleep, I combed through her emails, her messages, taking screenshots, forwarding them to an anonymous account I created. The picture that emerged was horrific. Hayley and Garrett had been high school sweethearts who reconnected at a college reunion. The affair started innocently. Enough. But Garrett had a gambling problem and mounting debts, and Hayley had grown tired of playing second fiddle to Andrew's heroics. Together, they hatched a plan. Hayley would take out a massive life insurance policy on Andrew, $2 million with double indemnity for line-of-duty death. Garrett, with his insurance background, knew how to make it happen without raising flags. Then came the execution. Hayley had been planting the seeds for months, telling friends Andrew was becoming careless, mentioning his forgetfulness to his captain, even staging minor incidents at home. A pot left on the stove, the gas fireplace left running. The fire that killed him wasn't an accident. The building wasn't supposed to be occupied, an abandoned warehouse scheduled for demolition. But Andrew's team got the call, reports of squatters inside, possible children. They went in despite the structural warnings. Only Andrew didn't come out. Investigation revealed an accelerant had been used, arson. But with no clear suspect, the case stalled. Officially, it was listed as a line-of-duty death by probable arson, perpetrator unknown. But I knew because I found Garrett's messages coaching Hayley on exactly where to place the accelerant, what type to use, how to ensure maximum damage with minimum detection. They had murdered my brother for money, and then she had seduced me. Andrew. Because I needed proof, hard evidence. Not just suspicious emails that could be explained away. I needed Hayley to pay for what she'd done. So I flushed the toilet, brushed my teeth, and walked back into our bedroom with a smile. "Thought we might try that new French place tonight," I said as Hayley applied lotion to her legs. "The concierge said they have an amazing wine list." She looked up, searching my face. Finding nothing amiss, she smiled. "Perfect." Over the next 3 days, I became the world's greatest actor. I laughed at her jokes, made love to her with convincing enthusiasm, planned our future together, all while meticulously gathering evidence. I installed a keylogger on her laptop while she was in the bath, bought a second phone and hid it in her purse, activated to record conversations. Each night after she fell asleep, I combed through her emails, her messages, taking screenshots, forwarding them to an anonymous account I created. The picture that emerged was horrific. Hayley and Garrett had been high school sweethearts who reconnected at a college reunion. The affair started innocently, enough. But Garrett had a gambling problem and mounting debts, and Hayley had grown tired of playing second fiddle to Andrew's heroics. Together, they hatched a plan. Hayley would take out a massive life insurance policy on Andrew, $2 million with double indemnity for line-of-duty death. Garrett, with his insurance background, knew how to make it happen without raising flags. Then came the execution. Hayley had been planting the seeds for months, telling friends Andrew was becoming careless, mentioning his forgetfulness to his captain, even staging minor incidents at home. A pot left on the stove, the gas fireplace left running. The fire that killed him wasn't an accident. The building wasn't supposed to be occupied, an abandoned warehouse scheduled for demolition. But Andrew's team got the call, reports of squatters inside, possible children. They went in despite the structural warnings. Only Andrew didn't come out. Investigation revealed an accelerant had been used. Arson. But with no clear suspect, the case stalled. Officially, it was listed as a line-of-duty death by probable arson, perpetrator unknown. But I knew, because I found Garrett's messages coaching Hayley on exactly where to place the accelerant, what type to use, how to ensure maximum damage with minimum detection. They had murdered my brother for money, and then she had seduced me, Andrew's unremarkable brother, as the perfect cover. It was brilliant, really. I almost had to admire the psychological manipulation, how she'd played on my feelings of inferiority to Andrew, how she'd fabricated his affair to justify our relationship, how she'd made me believe I was rescuing her when, really, I was just another part of her scheme. On our final night in Aspen, Hayley suggested we use the hot tub. We sat among the bubbles, steam rising around us, stars brilliant in the mountain sky. She floated to my side, wrapped her legs around my waist. "Have I told you how happy you make me?" she murmured, trailing kisses along my jaw. "How perfect this all is." I pulled her closer, feeling her heartbeat against mine. "Everything I ever wanted," I agreed. Her eyes, when they met mine, were luminous, sincere, the eyes of a woman deeply in love, or the eyes of a world-class sociopath. "When we get home," she whispered, "I want to start trying for a baby right away. I don't want to wait." I froze. The thought of having a child with this woman, this murderer, made my skin crawl. But I kept my expression neutral, even enthusiastic. Nothing would make me happier. Later, as she slept beside me, I finalized my plan. I had enough evidence now. Tomorrow we would fly home, and once there I would contact the detective who had investigated. The fire. Seattle welcomed us back with characteristic rain, a steady drizzle that matched my mood. As our cab pulled up to the house, I felt a strange sense of unreality. Was I really carrying the luggage of my brother's murderer, playing the role of devoted husband while plotting her downfall? "Home, sweet home," Hayley sighed, unlocking the front door. I watched her move through the house, turning on lights, adjusting thermostats. So at ease, so confident. "I'm going to unpack," she called over her shoulder, heading upstairs. "I'll make us some tea," I replied, the perfect attentive husband. Instead, I slipped into Andrew's old home office and made a call to Detective Reeves, who had led the investigation into Andrew's death. "Mr. Martin," he said, voice gruff with surprise. "What can I do for you?" "I have information about my brother's death," I said quietly, eyes on the staircase. "Evidence, but I need to meet in person." There was a pause. What kind of evidence? The kind that identifies who set that fire, and why. Another, longer pause. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m., my office." I agreed and hung up just as Hayley appeared in the doorway, wearing one of my shirts and nothing else. "No tea," she pouted. I crossed to her, cupped her face in my hands. "Got distracted thinking about you." She melted against me. "Show me how much." That night was the hardest performance of my life, making love to her while despising every inch of her, whispering endearments while plotting her arrest. When she finally fell asleep, I lay awake beside her, studying her profile in the dim light. She looked peaceful, innocent. How many times had she played this same game with Andrew? Kissed him goodbye as she sent him to his death? The next morning, I told her I had a business meeting. Kissed her at the door like any other day. An hour later, I was in Detective Reeves' cluttered office, laying out my evidence piece by piece. The emails, the voice recordings, the timeline. Reeves's expression grew grimmer with each revelation. When I finished, he sat back, rubbing his face. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. "We suspected the fire was targeted, but we thought it was aimed at the department, not Martin, specifically." He shook his head. "And you're married to her now? Living in the same house?" "Yes." "That's a precarious position, Mr. Martin." I met his gaze steadily. "I want her caught. I want justice for Andrew. What do I need to do?" What followed was 3 weeks of careful choreography. On Reeves's instruction, I maintained absolute normalcy with Hayley. Meanwhile, a task force was assembled. Warrants obtained. Garrett Lawson was put under surveillance, and Hayley, believing her plan was proceeding perfectly, made the fatal mistake of meeting Garrett at a motel outside city limits. There, conversation, captured by both FBI microphones and my hidden phone, was the final nail in their coffin. "The insurance company called today," Hayley said, sprawled naked across Garrett's chest. "Final review is complete. Funds should transfer by Friday." Garrett kissed her deeply. $2 million, baby, just like we planned. 1 more week. Playing house with Jacob, then we're free. Costa Rica, here we come. "Was it worth it?" Garrett asked, trailing fingers down her spine. "Everything we did." Hayley's laugh was chilling in its lightness. "Andrew was a self-righteous prick who treated me like a trophy, and he was cheating anyway. He deserved what he got." She sat up, straddling Garrett. Besides, watching that warehouse go up, knowing he was inside, that was the most alive I've felt in years. The arrest was anticlimactic after all the build-up. I was at work when it happened, another of Reeves' precautions. SWAT teams hit both the motel and our house simultaneously. Hayley was taken into custody while packing a suitcase full of cash. Garrett surrendered without incident. I identified her at the station, watched through one-way glass as she was processed, fingerprinted, photographed. Her expression was one of stunned disbelief, not at being caught, but at who had caught her. They allowed me 5 minutes with her before formal charging. She sat across from me in an interview room, hands cuffed to the table, still wearing the sundress she'd put on that morning. "Why, Jacob?" she asked, voice small. "I loved you. We could have been happy." I studied her, this woman I had thought I loved, this monster who had taken my brother from the world. "No, Hayley, you never loved me. I was just convenient. The perfect alibi." She leaned forward, eyes suddenly hard. "You think you've won? You think this is over? I'll tell them you knew, that you helped plan it, that you wanted Andrew dead as much as I did, always jealous of your perfect brother." I smiled thinly. "Except, I have every conversation we've ever had recorded, every email, every text. You're finished, Hayley. You and Garrett both." For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. "They'll never convict me. I'm a grieving widow who found love again. Juries eat that shit up, except you're on tape confessing to enjoying watching my brother burn alive." I stood. "Goodbye, Hayley. Enjoy prison." The trial lasted 6 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. Digital, physical, circumstantial. The prosecution painted a picture of greed, calculation, and utter disregard for human life. Hayley maintained her innocence to the end, painted herself as a victim of Garrett's manipulation, claimed she'd had no knowledge of his plans, wept prettily for the jury. It didn't work. The recording of her at the motel, gloating about Andrew's death, sealed her fate. She was sentenced to life without parole. Garrett got 40 years. I've sometimes wondered if I should feel guilty for how easily I deceived her, for the convincing, Performance I gave as the devoted husband while gathering evidence against her. But then I remember Andrew, trapped in that burning building. I remember how she touched me, kissed me, made love to me, all while knowing she had murdered my brother. He sold the house, moved across the country, changed my name, started over. Some nights I still dream of her, not as the monster she was, but as the woman I thought I loved. Those are the worst nights. They say time heals all wounds. They're wrong. Some wounds leave scars that never fade. You just learn to live with them. My name is Jacob Martin. I'm 43 years old, and I'm here to tell you that the most dangerous predators don't look like monsters. They look like opportunity, like desire, like love. Sometimes they even look like family.